Good morning, everybody, or good evening, or good afternoon, depending on where you're zooming in from around the world. And welcome to the 7th webinar and the 4th day in this 2022 Travel Retail Sustainability Week. My name is Michael Barrett, and I'm Head of Events and Corporate Social Responsibility at TR Business, and I'll be co-moderating this session alongside my esteemed colleague, Luke Barris-Hill, who I'll pass over to in just a couple of minutes. So this particular webinar is the first part of the closing keynote session, Green Influences, Combining People, Planet and Purpose, Part 1. So thanks to all of you for joining, and of course, thanks to our speakers who will be introducing in just a couple of minutes also. And a special thanks, of course, to our headline sponsor, Mars, for supporting this event, as well as the sponsors of this particular session, who are also Mars, Beam Suntory, Diageo, JTI and L'Occitane en Provence. But also a special thanks to all the sponsors, not just mentioned, but other sponsors who are supporting this event, because as you know, you've registered for the Travel Retail Sustainability Week on a complimentary basis. The reason for that is we want to get this message out, or these messages out, about everything that's being done by stakeholders within the industry on sustainability as far and wide as possible, and other initiatives that are not yet being undertaken by the industry that we've brought into this event this week for you to hear about. So we want to make it free of charge. So we need those sponsors to support this. And thank you very much to all those companies for doing that. And you see their logos, I hope, on the screen right now. This event was launched last year in the midst of the pandemic as an online event only. We're not going to fly people across the world to talk about sustainability, a bit contradictory in terms there. But we are delighted to be hosting similar events in a physical environment around the world as different associations invite us to curate specific events on sustainability and consumer issues at their own events. The objectives, of course, of this event is to share ideas, to hear from the industry stakeholders about current projects in the pipeline, and we want you and them, of course, and the speakers to use this opportunity as a springboard for further collaboration. And that happened last year. It's happened this week as we hear speakers among themselves saying, oh, we've got to connect after this event and work more closely together. And that's absolutely fantastic. We try to bring new concepts and new potential partners from outside the industry as well as hearing from industry stakeholders. Last year we did it with David Katz from the Plastic Bank, and you've seen a number of new faces this week from Olio and Kitro, among others. So it's great to hear from new faces as well as industry stakeholders. We've also broadened the scope this year. We've had two fantastic sessions on Wednesday about health and well-being, as well as diversity and inclusion. So we're not just talking about sustainability in the environmental capacity, but different aspects of sustainability under the broader corporate social responsibility umbrella. So we've got a great program and speaker lineup for you today, as we have had all week. After the keynote session on Tuesday, we had the design session. I've mentioned the two sessions on Wednesday: diversity, inclusion, health and well-being. Yesterday, we had a great session on circular solutions, followed by an interactive session talking about the future of food in the industry and travel retail. And of course, today, after this session, we have another category-specific one on wines and spirits, and the final session at 2 p.m. British Summer Time, the final closing keynote session, Green Influences again. Of course, we can't forget our two sustainability pitch sessions, which took place on Wednesday and Thursday. So congratulations to all those companies who are vying for the travel retail sustainability trailblazer and hero status, and in particular Gonzalez Baez and Nestlé, who achieved the hero status on Wednesday, and Altavia and Mondelez, who achieved the trailblazer status on Wednesday. And yesterday we had L'Oreal and Moroccan Oil, who achieved the travel retail sustainability trailblazer status, and New Wave and Mondelez, with the second pitch, achieved the hero status. So congratulations to all those companies. You can watch all the sessions that have taken place so far this week, both here on this platform by clicking on the session going back into the previous days, but you can also see them all already on the TR Business YouTube channel. So just go onto YouTube, type TR Business and check the Travel Retail Sustainability Week 2022 playlist. So please do participate actively in this session. You've got the Q&A panel there on the right-hand side. If you don't know quite who's speaking, if you miss the name as it comes up, you've got the speaker names and bios below this screen, so you can check those out there. And you've also got the link to the program as well down there, and I'll post it in the Q&A panel as well right now for you if you want to see the full program. So without any further ado, I'll now hand over to my esteemed colleague Luke. Over to you, Luke. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Michael, for that introduction, and greetings to all of you on Earth Day as we foray into first in a two-part closing keynote session on green influencers combining people, planet, and purpose. And I'd like to take this opportunity to also congratulate our sustainability heroes and trailblazers for magnificent work and achievements over the course of the last few days, and obviously the great sessions that we've heard from. I'm Luke Barrett, managing editor of the TR Business Easy, as Michael's alluded to, and it gives me real pleasure to add my voice to a conversation that really needs no introduction. You know, as we've heard throughout the course of this week, the importance of corporate social responsibility as a broad church, really, for businesses across a number of different sectors, including the travel sector. It really transcends the environmental issues that were at the forefront of our debates in last year's Travel Retail Sustainability Week. And those philosophies, those approaches, those practices really are focused on committing and really encouraging more collaboration between workforces, prioritising their health and well-being, and fostering greater diversity, equity, inclusion that, of course, we've heard in dedicated sessions throughout this week. Now, people, for me, and this is something that's really struck home over the course of our conversations in the last few days, people are really at the heart of conversations regarding sustainability. And it's really heartening to see that play through. And for me, this was summed up very, very nicely in the opening keynote session, and a quote from Tessa Clark at Olio. And I'd like to just read that out because I think it's particularly pertinent. Tessa said, "I really believe that if you get truly diverse teams, then everything else will follow. The sustainability conversations go from being a battle to just common sense when you have diverse voices in the room." Now, aside from being a particularly profound statement in its own right, Tessa's statement has wider significance, and it feeds very nicely into the pillars that we're going to explore today, and that's planet and purpose. By democratizing share of voices within organizations, including travel retail, we're really able to sharpen messages more greatly around sustainability and those objectives that we're all striving to achieve. Now, we've heard throughout this week the many examples of how businesses are working hard to maximize their environmental footprints by focusing on green energy, waste reduction, water management, reduce recycling initiatives, plastic reduction, and tackling food waste. And that's taking place across their operations in the supply chain. And that's the planet conversation piece. We place particular focus on that, as I said, during last year's Sustainability Week. But secondly, and of equal importance, is having more diversity of voices gives us all the best chance of ensuring that we are honest, frank, and transparent in the way that we communicate with consumers. And that's often the missing stakeholder in the wider jigsaw that we have in the business-to-business conversations every day. So look, I'm really looking forward to hearing from all of our panelists today and this STEAM panel who are going to unbox some examples of best practice across their organizations that will speak to how we as an industry can stay ahead of that consumer curve, offering novel experiences, best practice in a way that anticipates rather than reacts to demand from consumers and the responsibilities that we all hold as companies. So all of this and much more is going to be explored in much more detail. We have 3 retailers on our panel and 3 brand representatives. So please do take the opportunity, as Michael mentioned, to pitch your questions, voice your opinions and comments. You can do that using the Q&A function on the right-hand side. We're really eager to hear from you to put those questions across. Travel Retail Sustainability Week is, of course, as Michael mentioned, designed to be a springboard for new ideas, generation, and creative dialogue. So we encourage you to fully immerse yourself and engage with the discussions we're having. So in a similar fashion to the last sessions, the last few sessions over the past few days, we'll be asking each of our panelists at the end of this debate to share some concrete actions or discussion points based on the learnings that they've heard in order to take forward the sustainability agenda as represented by our industry. What concerted moves can we make to improve across different aspects? And this is key to sparking new interactions and crucially new business. And we've seen some examples play out over the coming days. I noted Stuart Dryberg yesterday alluded to an example within their company, and they're going to try and put EnviroPoint in contact with a contact within Nestlé. So that's really, really good to hear. So look, without further ado, I want to now hand over to introduce our lineup of panelists for this session. And they'll give some introductions and a bit of background on each of their roles and responsibilities within their companies. So without further ado, let's start with Nicola Wales. Nicola.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you, Luke, for inviting us to speak today. My name is Nicola Wells. I'm representing Nestlé today. The first half of my career, just a bit of background, I spent in food with Mars, Britvic and PepsiCo, and then laterally worked with my ex-colleague here, Nuno, at Arienta for 8 years as the Director of Strategy and Marketing. Set up my own business in 2019, and I've spent the last 18 months working very closely with Nestlé on creating a category strategy to drive post-COVID recovery and accelerate that through the category, which was the food #1 most purchased category, which we launched last year. There's a growth model within that, which is Verse, and the R of Verse is regeneration, and that's obviously aligned to what we're talking about today. So I'm going to be extending my partnership with Nestlé, which is why I'm here today, working now with key customers as to how we bring that to fruition. So I'm looking forward to discussing how we can collaborate with our retailers to drive that sustainability and regeneration agenda. So that is me. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Nicola. We're very much looking forward to developing some of those conversations that you're having with your partners in due course. Svenja, if I can turn to you, Svenja at Heinemann.
Yeah, hi Luke, dear everyone, happy Earth Day, which is today. So my name is Svenja Fischer, and as team lead corporate responsibility at Gebr Heinemann, a family company business dedicated to travel retail since 5 generations, I'm really, really thankful for this opportunity to influencing for a sustainable impact in our joint travel value chain, since this is what we are all doing here, and this is what I've learned in the sessions before, and I really, really like this format and looking forward to our exchange on our joint sustainability topics.
Thanks very much, Svenja. Nuno.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Happy Earth Day, and thank you for the invitation to speak. So my name is Nuno Amaral. I am the Chief Operations Officer and Chief Business Development Officer at ARI. And I'm also a board member at APTRA, the Asia Pacific Travel Retail Association, and I'm here today to speak on behalf of APTRA. I'm the chairperson of the Sustainability Committee, and we have launched recently a few initiatives that I'm looking forward to sharing with you.
Thanks very much, Nuno. Jean-Charles, if I could come to you.
Hello, everybody. My name is Jean-Charles Lhommet. I'm the Biodiversity and Sustainable Ingredient Director for the L'Occitane Group. I manage a team of agronomists based in France and Burkina Faso. And we manage with the R&D team our product eco-design roadmap, considering the raw materials, formulas, packaging. And we work also globally on the measurement and the reduction of the impact on biodiversity. And we take action for the regeneration of ecosystem. And we also develop on the field new cultivation practices in collaboration with farmers, family farmers, respecting the principle of fair trade certification.
Thank you very much for that. We're really eager to unbox some of those developments in regenerative farming at L'Occitane. So thank you very much, Jean-Charles. Dogus, can I come to you?
Hello, everyone, and thank you for having me today. So it's a great honor to be in this forum. My name is Dogus Kezer. I'm Category Marketing Director in Mondelez World Travel Retail. Today, together with my esteemed colleague Philippe from Dufry, we would like to share with you basically the power of collaboration on driving more sustainable practices in the travel retail industry. So looking forward to having a great conversation and learning from each other. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dogus. And last but by no means least, Philippe.
Yes, good morning, everyone. Thank you, Dogus, for the introduction. Thank you, Luc. I'm Philippe Moryl. I'm working for Dufry and in charge of confectionery, food, souvenirs, and toys categories on a global scale. And here, as Dogus was mentioning, is to see how we can really support this agenda by working together with the different stakeholders. In that case, Mondelez, we had a great initiative in that sense that we will elaborate further on today. So I'm very pleased to be part of this discussion and also looking forward to discuss further.
Thanks very much, Philippe, for that. So to kick things off, we want to understand how stakeholders are evolving the conversations they're having around people, planet, and purpose within the industry in their respective organizations. Nuno, I'm going to turn to you to begin. Obviously, you wear a number of hats, obviously Chief Operations and Business Development Officer at ARI, but you're going to speak to us today in your capacity as a board member at APTRA. And APTRA, of course, made some pretty important strides in the past couple of months with regards to prioritizing sustainability and strategic developments on that side. So if you can give us a bit of background, bring us up to date on the moves that APTRA are making to develop this agenda.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Luke. Yes, I mean, we at APTRA, APTRA obviously covers a very, very wide region of the world with a very different with countries and this brands, retailers, airports, all on a very different evolutionary scale, so to speak, on their sustainability journey. Nevertheless, everyone agrees that this is a very important topic for all our members. And so we want to support the members with the most commercially valuable insights that we can have, provide them with useful learnings and share best practices. We are trying to find some commonality and some common ground on all the key aspects and try to move everyone in the right direction, probably at different paces. Every organization has its different, obviously, strategy. But we believe that as an association, we can add value and we can help the industry progress in the right direction and support that progress. So what we have done is the association, we've set up a sustainability committee with several senior APTRA members representing retailers, brands, and airports. So we have this trinity represented at this sustainability committee, and I'm having the privilege of chairing it. And it is clear from the discussions we're having that all our businesses are at very different stages of the journey. Whether it's strategic scoping, adapting to the global initiatives, the global travel retail initiatives, or even the implementation process. It varies wildly. And we have a region that encompasses 45 plus countries. And so there are obviously different requirements and regulations across that region. So we have launched this, this sustainability committee, and we are trying to structure it around three different pillars. One is advocacy, how we can support our members and in driving the green agenda in the right direction. And we have just recently kicked off with a new sustainability report where we capture the key topics on sustainability by country. So we have advocacy as the first key pillar of our strategic objective in the Sustainability Committee. Then we have knowledge and research. That's the second pillar. So how we share learnings and evolving trends and how we help to define what are the best practices in the sustainability field. And then as the third, we have networking. So there is an element here of also understanding what other countries are doing and how we can move together in the right direction. And so bringing members to discuss issues and potentially to collaborate on solutions, economies of scale, and other aspects. So we have these three pillars, so advocacy, knowledge and research and networking, and we're trying to provide support to the individual members of the organization. So in summary, that's what we are doing.
Nuno, can I just ask you? Sorry, you talked about on the advocacy side and looking at different policies on sustainability around the region. Obviously, one of the complexities of the Asia Pacific region is that it's so diverse with so many countries, unlike Europe, where you've got obviously the European Union centralizing legislation on these kind of things. Are you seeing a wide, and a very diverse set of legislation on all to do with sustainability affecting brands or retailers or airports?
Well, yes. I mean, I think more than diverse legislation is actually the pace at which I think there is no doubt when you talk to anyone around the region or even around the world that yes, okay, we need to limit or reduce the use of single-use plastics, for example. There's no one that says, no, we need actually to increase the use of, right? So I think in terms of where we want to go, I think there's a general agreement of where everyone wants to move to, being it suppliers, retailers, governments, airports. The pace at which they do that, and also the economic dynamics of how to do that, that's what's very different, depending also, like I said, on the evolutionary scale sometimes of this journey. What we're seeing, and that's what we're trying to leverage across APTRA, is that because it's such a diverse region, we are also trying to kind of triangulate what's happening in other countries so that we can give enough time and knowledge to countries that are probably a little bit behind the journey and what's coming. So we are trying to say, well, in Singapore, this is what's happening. So it might be that in a couple of years' time, the same will be applicable to other countries. Or this is what's happening in India. This is what's happening in Australasia, in Australia, and whatever. So and that's where the legislation is moving towards. So we also need to be careful here when we talk about advocacy. It's not kind of traditionally advocacy in the sense of we need to lobby this in the right direction. It's more trying to understand a little bit where we are going, and also the economic impact of what's being asked by the governments, because that's the other kind of the elephant in the room in all of this. Everyone wants to move in the right direction, but then when you start talking the cost of that move, that's where then companies start having very different approaches and very different trade-offs that need to be made, because many of these initiatives involve cost and economic investment, or an upfront investment that obviously you believe you might be able to recoup in the medium and long term with extra market share or whatever it is. But the fact is that many of them have an immediate additional cost, and everyone has boardrooms and shareholders to manage, obviously, and that's something that we're also acutely aware of.
And will it be one of the roles of the association going forward, if you take some countries who are leading the way in developments on the sustainability initiatives? Let's take airports, whether it's Changi, Auckland, or Sydney, for example. Will it be APTRA's remit then to go to markets around the region where there's less investment in sustainability? Examples where airports are not requesting the concession partners to ditch single-use plastics, or that maybe less positive a track record when it comes to human rights and workers' rights and so on. Will it be APTRA's role to work with airports, retailers in those countries that are perhaps lagging behind?
Yeah, I mean, yes, it will be. It will obviously try to influence in the right direction. I mean, we don't have the ambition to say that we are fundamentally going to have the strength to be able to massively influence in many countries. And even when you're saying about human rights or whatever, I mean, also that's a very also dangerous field for us as an organization that obviously represents several different interests and entities and all of that. So we kind of try to add value to our members, but without putting any of them in a difficult spot, obviously, right? So, and all of those matters are very, very sensitive, and they need to be dealt with at that individual and that country level. And many of our members obviously have a much more profound knowledge of their countries than we as an association have. So obviously what we try to do is influence, like I said, try to gather the knowledge and have a kind of a central repository of knowledge and of best practices, and then try to shape the agenda or influence the agenda. And yes, work with airports, with retailers, with suppliers, more in terms of changing mindsets more than anything, I would say.
And I just want to jump in here just to pick you up on the Sustainability Committee, its conception. How long has this been in the offing? I mean, when was it decided? Can you tell us a little bit about the background, the thinking around that, and also critically the Constitution? Tell us how it's made up.
Yeah, so we started talking about this more seriously, obviously, during the pandemic. During the pandemic, there was a huge acceleration there was the dialing back on a few things and dialing up on a few others. And obviously, everything that had to do with sustainability and connectivity and all of that were kind of buzzwords during the pandemic. So we started thinking as an association how we could add value, basically. That was the whole discussion. It's not an easy discussion as an association because like I said, every country is doing its own thing. Every retailer, supplier, airport is doing its own thing. So how can we as an association try to add value? And so we came up with the idea of creating this sustainability committee and of trying to bring different members from different areas to try to have as much diversity as possible. And then we started working on what would be the terms of reference for such a committee. And that's where we then defined that these three pillars that I mentioned, the advocacy, the knowledge, and the networking would make sense. We've set this up beginning of this year. So we've now had a couple of official meetings already. And we're working on a few initiatives, and like I said, the sustainability report that we are now publishing on a quarterly basis is being now shared with all the members that are also APTRA members, not necessarily of the Sustainability Committee members. So so that's basically more or less the journey but like I said, we're very, very early in the journey still. We're all, I think, trying to understand how to do this in the best possible way. And like I said, trying to add value. And as an association, and again, here I have my association hat on, it's not easy to try to add value and what is a very diverse region with a lot of many countries, like I said, over 45 countries, and where we have all of them at a very different stage of their journey. So,
as you said, sorry, as you know, APTRA launched the self-regulatory code of conduct for the sale of responsible retailing of alcohol back in 2014 or 2015 it was, and that has been then replicated by other associations and then adopted by the Duty-Free World Council as has the training program. On sustainability, it was Renzo from Dufry and the discussion in the keynote session on Tuesday. It was talking about codes of conduct that they have to get their suppliers to sign up to on sustainability. And likewise, he said that many suppliers are also asking the retailers to sign up to their codes of conduct as well. So there's a lot of code of conduct going to be flying around from different categories, different suppliers, and different retailers. Do you see it as a role of the association and associations, maybe in partnership with the council, to elaborate a code of conduct on sustainability?
Well, we're not there yet, to be honest. That's a discussion we've had, but we are trying to start with, to be honest, smaller steps. The codes of conduct, like you said, there are a lot of codes of conduct flying around, and sometimes some organizations also see them as a little bit of a tick box exercise. Okay, you have a code of conduct, it's there somewhere. Okay, you sign up for it and you don't think about it for the next few years, and you don't even ask people, and half of them don't even know what's there. So we're trying really to, like I said, to start with baby steps first. Try to provide real value first within the organization, to see how we can bring everyone to the same level, at least of knowledge and of desire to move in the right direction, and we're starting first with this before we then go a little bit beyond and do things that go beyond the association. But like I said, Michael and Luke, it's very early stages for us as an association as well. We've just set up this committee very recently. We've had a couple of meetings only, so it's still very early in the journey.
We're going to pick up on the code of conducts debate in a little more detail later, building on obviously what we put to Renzo at Dufry earlier this week. But thanks, Luke, very much for showing that update, Nuno, on the committee and the report. And if I'm not mistaken, I believe, Michael, we're going to be able to be in a position where we can share a link perhaps with our attendees to that report, potentially after the session.
Yeah, that's Brother Nuno, is that right?
Yeah, we are launching it officially also to the media today as well. Yeah,
perfect. Yeah, I'm sure there'll be plenty of our viewers who'll be interested in obtaining that report and getting into the detail. And speaking of reports and studies, I want to actually bring in L'Occitane at this point, one of our travel retail trailblazers last year, and it's really deepening its knowledge around traceability, knowledge and responsible sourcing across the supply chain. I think it's apt at this point to move to L'Occitane. So I want to bring in Jean-Charles, who's going to update us a little bit on what the group is doing in that regard. So Jean-Charles, I'll hand over to you.
Yeah, thank you very much. So when we speak about sustainability or green influence, it's a very important subject for all stakeholders. If I look at the supply chain of product development. So, and maybe I want today to speak about the regenerative approach. So how we can measure, reduce our impact and think further and try to have a positive impact on the territories. So when we speak about sustainability at L'Occitane, we have three pillars like climate, biodiversity, and also diversity and inclusion. And we try always to develop our products considering our two clients, like consumers and planet, because we need efficient and pleasant formula, giving well-being to our consumers. And at the same time, we have to reduce our impact regarding, yes, climate and biodiversity, and also contribute positively to improve social benefits for communities, because we have a lot of ingredients, natural ingredients, and the source is directly linked to the territories and landscapes. So we take action on at each step of the value chain, so the raw materials and the eco-design formula, on packaging. So we base on strategy on recyclable and reusable materials. In our factory, we use renewable energy, and we have an important action plan for global water recycling system. We work on low impact distribution with bulk sales, for example, in our shop. And for the final use of products, we have use product collect system to help consumer to recycle their packaging. So today, maybe I can focus on emblematic raw material action, because it's my specialty. So the question is how to produce more sustainable raw materials with social benefits, which are good for consumer well-being. So again, we take into account people and nature. And to answer that question, we decided to link all of our key raw materials to ecological practices and fair trade certification, at least for 2025. So for the biggest of our raw material, key raw material, shea butter. So this raw material is in our top 5 raw material of our global portfolio in volume. So we developed an inclusive approach with women in Burkina Faso and Ghana. And right now we are 100% organic and fair trade certified. So fair trade means that we pay a fair price with variable margin for women, and we guarantee the volume for several years. And we pay a development fund in addition for social or environmental purpose. So we wanted to go further, and we develop in addition technologies to improve working condition and valorize shea process waste. to eliminate wood consumption. So right now we are able to save 4,000 tons of wood per year. So it's a very important carbon save. And we finished this program last year, and we wanted to go further again, and we integrated in our price a biodiversity bonus. So with this system, each kilos of shea butter we buy help women to regenerate the natural ecosystem of the shea forest. And we are very happy because this year we launched together with women, and we add additional subsidies. We launched a 7-year program to protect, restore, and regenerate 1,000 hectares of shea forest ecosystem. And if you look more globally, all these actions participate to fight against the global desertification mechanism on African continent. So that's an example of a regenerative approach, and we are very happy to start this new page with a woman in Burkina Faso. So we do that on shea butter and other key ingredients, but we want to stretch this approach on other territories. So for example, in Indonesia, we have impacts through our RSPO derivatives. So we will launch this year a natural forest protection program on the palm area. And in France, because L'Occitane is very linked to the plant sourcing in Provence, in the south of France, we created with our farmers partner a fair trade and regenerative agriculture association. So our key ingredients already follow the rules of fair trade principle, but we want to be certified to be more transparent with consumers. So the development fund will help family farms to experiment, to take risk, and to find solution to their ecological transition, because we know that we have to think differently the way to produce our ingredients. So on the field, what does it mean? So farmers are now developing with my team and technical organisms, new techniques using plants to give back life and biodiversity in the soil. So reintroduce trees in the farm to bring back to the life linked to them. So birds, water, insect, diversity of plants, etc. So right now, farmers, suppliers, cosmetic brands, we all want to produce and use biodiversity, but not exploit it, because we know that the old system is not sustainable anymore, and we can't continue like that. And that's for the benefits also for our consumers. And if we speak about all this action on sourcing territories, landscapes, thanks to forums like today, or through our boutique advisor in the shops, in the airports, I believe that we can have a positive influence and beyond only our product and cosmetic sectors. So I'm very happy to know that in my company, everybody is concerned about sourcing and ingredients, and that beauty advisor can explain and influence our consumer on all these sustainable actions.
Thanks very much, Jean-Charles. It's really interesting to hear about that biodiversity bonus you mentioned, where each kilogram of shea butter bought from the producers can be used to regenerate those areas of the shea forest. Are you applying that biodiversity bonus in, across other areas of your supply chain aside the shea butter sourcing?
Yeah, so for example, in France, the association we created with the fair trade certification, all the fair trade development fund will go to help farmers to experiment regenerative agriculture. So it will help them to transform their business model and to become more sustainable and to have a positive impact on their own fields. And the thing is very important for sustainable, but also to securize our raw materials. If we continue like that, we know that we will have big problem to have access to ingredients and raw materials. So it's very important for sustainable, but it's also very important for business. And if we want to continue to develop pleasant and efficient products for consumers, I think it's the only way to go. So we want to have positive action on all the the global portfolio. So for direct supply chain as shea butter, immortel lavender, almond, etc., but also with commodities. And the example of palm oil is we don't use directly palm oil, so we have the RSPO certification. But as we did a lot of transparency and traceability job with our suppliers, we know the area of impact. So right now we are working with other brands to develop a specific program to develop regenerative agriculture on the palm plantation and at the landscape point of view, also to protect natural forests to avoid the deforestation.
And how are you communicating those important notions of transparency when it comes to raw material sourcing to the consumer, particularly in travel environments and in travel retail? Are you scaling up the amount of direct to consumer communication that you place, L'Occitane as a group?
I think we do through our business advisor, our BAs, but I think we can go further, and it will be the time to do that. And I know that a lot of people are working on it, but it's always the question between doing and saying it, and it's better to doing a lot before speaking. So I think it will be the time to speak, and because we now not just work on our key raw materials, but we work on the global portfolio, I think it's time for us to speak more about that. But yeah, action before speaking, I think.
Action before speaking. Well, it's really interesting, and I think at this point it's important to reiterate the importance of collaboration and partnerships that we've heard throughout this week. And at this point, I'd really like to bring in some of the confectionery representatives on our panel. Perhaps we can turn to Mondelez and Douche, and can you tell us a little bit about the One Tree Planted partnership with Dufry, and bring in Philippe here? I'd like to segue in to hear a bit more about some of the action plans that you've taken to really scale this up.
Yeah, thank you, Luke. So, before we start, would be great if we can basically reel and watch together the short video we have, and then I will basically respond to your question. So before going into the details of the One Tree Planted collaboration, I would like to emphasize basically the role of the trusted partnerships. So as long-standing and trusted partners for many decades, Mondelez and the World Travel Retail and also Dufry believe that sustainability cannot be the responsibility of one stakeholder. Only the combined actions of brand owners, retailers, agencies, as well as the airport authorities serve for the greater purpose and greater good for people, planet, and the industry. So what we believe is we are stronger together. And I believe One Tree Planted activation is a clear representation of this strong partnership. So moving into the details of the activation, in October last year, Dufry and Mondelez demonstrated a great collaboration on multi-location promotion to support the nonprofit tree planting charity, One Tree Planted, to plant one tree for every Toblerone purchased in selected locations across the global travel retail. Leveraging the power of the channel's #1 chocolate brand, Toblerone, this collaboration basically aims to help the global reforestation efforts, as well as to support the travelers in making their choices in a more sustainable way when they are shopping in the duty-free. The donation value of each Toblerone purchased from the selected Dufry stores funds the planting of one tree in the Andes Mountains of South America, supporting both the physical environment as well as the surrounding community. The campaign is being highlighted to travelers in multiple touch points, starting from the digital advertising and also the strong activations at the point of sales, including the QR code gift tags attached to our Toblerone products with the iconic 360-gram bar and the best-selling Toblerone tiny bag. So when shoppers scan the code, basically they are taken into a microsite where they can directly learn about the details of the campaign as well as monitor the progress of the reforestation efforts in real time. So we started the journey with the goal of 50,000 trees. And since then, we basically clearly surpassed our original goals. And even as we speak, we continue basically increasing the number of trees as we speak. So we have a strong ambition to go.
I want to bring in Philippe at this point to get his take on the success of the activation, the partnership with Dufry. Obviously, Mondelez have been collaborating with Dufry for a while. What's the consumer reaction been, Philippe? And give us a little bit more background on how the success of this is playing out in store at point of sale.
Yes. So as Dogus was mentioning, I mean, we also truly believe that nothing can be done if we are alone. This is the main message, and we need to work together and in close collaboration. And this is what we did in the past in many aspects of the business with our brand partners. I mean, with Mondelez, obviously they came up, I think, mid of last year. With the first, let's say, thought about this program, and they ask us if we are ready to support, and we say, of course, we are there to support this activity that we found very interesting and clearly aligned also with the strategy of the group. Renzo over the week has shared the agenda that we have at Dufry with regards to sustainability. So when Mondelez came with this program and this project, it was at the right timing, and we saw it's a great opportunity also to show and to illustrate what we can do together again, and that's the key message here. From the consumer perspective, we all know that sustainability is an important topic, and we need to show also that we are actively participating and contributing to this topic. So the feedback and as Dogus was referring to in terms of number of trees that we planted, or we managed to plant through Mondelez, basically, the results are just great. People are very let's say have a very positive response with regards to this kind of initiative. So it has been a great success in all point of view, let's say.
And switching back to Dogus, are there plans to broaden this initiative to take in other Mondelez brands aside Toblerone?
For the moment, we basically feel that it's very on the point of the DNA of the brand Toblerone. So as we have a global span, we are planning to further scale it up by adding new destinations, but we believe that it's a nice match for the Toblerone. But for the rest of the brands, we already have very strong initiatives, which is directly tied with our basically travel retail made right initiative.
And what are the next steps really to building, increasing not only consumer awareness, but awareness with your customers, Dogus, to take this initiative to the next level?
Basically, we will further amplify and scale it up with adding new destinations. As I basically said, we have a global ambition, basically in terms of the travel retail made right. And within that, we basically prioritize 4 major building blocks, starting from the right product, providing the right sustainable ingredients and reducing our packaging waste, and also improving our recyclability. In addition to that, basically, we combine it with the sustainable design and the production of our point of sales materials. There we also come up with a groundbreaking sustainability scorecard, which is totally new for the industry, and which is also helping us to set high benchmark to even ourselves, and also allowing us to reduce our carbon footprint as we move further. I mean, in addition to that, basically we will further continue doing some responsible and ethical promotions as we do with the Toblerone One Tree Planted. So it's a continuous journey, let me say. But last but not least, I think educating, inspiring, and supporting the industry towards a sustainable future is also quite essential. And we really appreciate the efforts of the Sustainability Week and the travel retail business on this front. And also a huge thank you for recognizing our industry-leading efforts with the 5-star Sustainability Award, which is truly encouraging for us for further attempts.
Such a well-deserved achievement, Dogus. And you know, you mentioned there about this continual evolution, this journey, and you know, generation regeneration was a phrase used yesterday by Stuart Dryberg in the food session. And you know, Nestlé also have some compelling developments that I know that they're keen to share. And I think at this point, it's probably appropriate to hand over to Nicola Wales. Nicola's got some quite important news to share. So I'm going to hand over to you, Nicola, to take us through Nestlé.
Thank you, Luke. I'm going to share a couple of slides just to guide us through the session. You may hear my dog barking madly. I have asked a teenager to let him out. So these days of your Zoom calls not being interrupted are not over yet. So the dog's going a bit crazy. So I will endeavour to go ahead. I'm just going to share a couple of slides to guide us through the session. So can everyone see that? Yeah.
Not yet. Do appear to be in screen sharing mode. Yes, we have you now, Nicola. Thank you.
Okay, so building on what Stuart spoke about yesterday, which is around the generation regeneration promise, Nestlé's focus is on advancing regenerative food systems at scale, and it's really about going beyond sustainability, and it's about helping protect, renew, and restore. There's 3 major commitments that I wanted to touch on today that Nestlé are driving towards, and it's about how we source and produce is changing dramatically. The first is the sustainably sourced cocoa, and it'll be 100% will be sustainably sourced by 2025. Currently, it's around 68%. So the cocoa plan has been in action since 2009, and in that time there's three pillars to it: better farming, better lives, and better cocoa. So in that time there's been 14.5 million trees planted, 114,000 farmers educated, and then 45 schools and 70 bridge schools have been supported through this program. However, the business, Nestlé, felt that it wasn't moving fast enough in terms of the second pillar around the better lives and supporting that. And at the beginning of this year we launched the Income Accelerator Plan, which won one of the Hero Status awards this week. And I think it's best explained through the video, if we're okay to roll with that, please. to me. I think that really encapsulates everything that is trying to be done through the Cocoa Plan and accelerating it. And as someone who's worked alongside Nestlé and now becoming more involved, it has been, I can just see the pride that everyone that's working with Nestlé and for Nestlé feels in that. So when we talk about sustainability, it's also about how you engage the people that work with you. And just, I can comment on that as someone who's worked alongside, that this has been an initiative and the whole program has really brought the organization together. So that was just the second initiative I want to talk about was the commitment to 100% recyclable or reusable packaging by 2025. So currently around 40% of the packaging is now recycled or renewable. And one of the big commitments is around getting to a third less virgin plastics. So three key pillars to this. One is around reducing the use of plastic. So you will have seen the move Smarties to all paper packaging last year. Pioneering is the second pillar. So there's a packaging institute which is dedicated to looking at alternative packaging solutions with 50 experts working on that, which is one of a kind globally. And then thirdly, it's great to have recyclable packaging, but you have to create and support the ability for consumers to recycle. So the third pillar is around supporting recycling in different communities we sell in, and also educating consumers as to what can and cannot be recycled. So it's perfect to have all this, but if they don't know what to do with it, you kind of can fall at the last hurdle. Finally, I'm going to talk about zero net emissions by 2050. So the business is currently, Nestlé are planning to be 50% by 2030 and 100% by 2050. So two big initiatives around this are a focus on regenerative agriculture. So a commitment that 50% of ingredients will come from a regenerative agricultural practices. So I know Jean-Charles, you spoke about that. It's around the health of the soil, biodiversity, water cycles, but also it's about focusing on insetting versus offsetting. So, you know, through Cocoa Plan, there's planting trees, which is offsetting carbon footprints, but really looking at that farm to fork. So reverse engineering and looking at where we can remove carbon as well as reduce it through regeneration of agricultural and working with suppliers to support them in doing that. Next, there's things like focusing on lower carbon products, plant-based foods, and renewable energy. And one of the big announcements to make today on World Earth Day is that we're very proud to launch Kitkat Vegan. So this was launched today. It'll be available in Q4, represents a 9% reduction in the carbon footprint, and is part of the path for Kitkat to become totally carbon neutral by 2025. So I think you alluded to the news earlier, Luke, but that's the big news in terms of the launch today.
It's really, really great to hear that, Nicola. Can you just give us a little bit more information on the launch itself? And Kritika, you mentioned that that carbon reduction percentage, 9%. How are Kitkat as a brand achieving this, and really the inspiration behind vegan? Obviously, it's a big topic at the moment, anyway, across the food markets. But just give us some background on that.
So I think, I mean, we can see up there what the consumer insight is. People want to do more, but they don't want to sacrifice taste. So it's kind of that better for you, better for the planet, which, you know, is something that is a platform Heinemann are looking at. But it's giving people the opportunity to do something and contribute to the sustainability drive. It's educating consumers, which I think we talked a lot about. How do we get the message across as to how they can do more? But it's also about not compromising on taste. So people they don't want to choose between taste and a healthier lifestyle. The Kitkat Vegan, it's about plant-based, and it's about taking out any of the animal fats that have been used previously to to produce the Kitkat. So the launch is, we've been talking to key retailers, and the launch will be in November later this year, but it was appropriate to launch today on World Earth Day.
And we're really, really pleased and privileged to share this announcement exclusively on Travel Retail Sustainability Week. And as Nicola has mentioned, this will be going out to the wider press, so very happy to receive this. Nicola, in terms of obviously those immediate term aims, 2025, there's a number of objectives, obviously the 100% cocoa sourcing through the cocoa plan, and some various other aspects. Does this represent for Nestlé, in your view, and obviously putting on both your hat at the moment, working with the brand, but previously with Arianta on both sides, does it represent a real step change in your view from the brand? I mean, we heard Stuart talk yesterday about, in the past, it's been very much that Nestlé has communicated what is going on in the present, and indeed what has been achieved, but it now seems there's a transition towards being more proactive with their communications. So can you comment a bit on that?
I think it's as I mentioned at the start, that the cocoa plan has been been running for over 12-13 years. So with all sustainability initiatives and regeneration, you have to start, and then it takes quite a while to get to the point where you can share results. I also think that in that time period, particularly within our industry, it's become much more of a core topic and a focus. So therefore it's more relevant to be communicating it more widely than it has been before. So both within the sort of the industry, but also for consumers, are much more educated and savvy and want to be educated on what they can do. So how they can do more. So it's appropriate to be more front foot about talking about the commitments of the business and our reputation and what we're doing to give back and regeneration and sustainability. So I think from that point of view, the time is right to be more vocal. I also think one of the, just think about the dual hats you mentioned there, Luke, and one of the premises of the Nestlé plans are about creating shared value, and that's around shared value for the business and shared value for the communities. And I think if we were to take that theme as an industry on how we can work together to create shared value across the airports, the retailers and the suppliers, that would be a good start in terms of collaboration. So how do we, in the same way with Kitkat, we've reverse engineered back into the supply chain, how do we as brands go forward with the retailers and backwards as well, and create more of a collaborative approach? So I think now's the time to be discussing those initiatives.
Consumers are increasingly savvy, and they can dispel very quickly these days any notions of greenwashing rhetoric, and we're seeing it more and more. And from that point of view, concepts like this are really important in store, particularly in the way that the retailers are communicating them. And it's important, I think, at this point to try and bring in Svenja from Heinemann, because Heinemann's doing a lot of work, particularly in recent years, regarding its future friendly campaign for responsible shopping. So I'm going to hand over to Svenja at this point. Can you talk us through the importance of this campaign, the Future Friendly campaign? What are you actively doing with Heinemann to really build awareness for brands within confectionery, but elsewhere?
Yeah, thank you, Luke, and thank you to all the speakers who shared already their concepts, because this is exactly what we need. We need the collaboration on these kind of topics, and we need to jointly create awareness. And to highlight what it means to creating awareness, and we already talked about code of ethics and sharing code of ethics and sharing values. We've created these kind of influencer chain, how my brilliant colleague Jennifer Quartz calls it, because this is where we create value as a travel retailer, but it also shows what is part of our travel value chain, what is part of our influencer chain, and where do we need to influence, where are we influenced from others. So it's all about collaboration. And when we're talking about standards, and standards from Code of Ethics, talking about standards for the future-friendly concept and the future-friendly campaign, we need to look at our value chain and our upstream processes. So where do we buy the products we want to highlight in our future-friendly standard or in our future-friendly program? So this is in the upstream process. So we have limited influence on it, how Nestlé or Mondelez produces the products, but of course we can discuss with them, what is your approach in terms of packaging, in terms of ingredients? And this is what we've done together with our Code of Ethics. We distributed it last year to our suppliers. And we not just distributed the Code of Ethics and asked for signature, we also added a self-assessment questionnaire and asked about their sustainability performance to learn what are they doing in terms of sourcing, what are they doing in terms of emissions reduction, energy use reduction, and of course, fair production. Because this is really, really important to bring this more up and to discuss it on the point of sale, the window to the world, the shop window to the world, where we can communicate and creating awareness around all these kind of topics. And as you know, our area is the security area. So we have limited opportunities to create or to, for example, install refill stations or to create these kind of recycle options. It's always great to hear about recyclability of products and recyclability approaches, but this is really hard when it comes to travel retail to bring recyclability forward, because as you know, in the downstream process where the end of life happens of the products, the products travel around the world with the shopper. So there may be some areas where you can recycle, some areas where you can't recycle, but obviously you won't recycle at the airport. So this is why we put together our future-friendly standard and waiving, for example, recyclability of products. So this is an attribute we decided is not reliable for travel retail in general, because yeah, there are areas you can't recycle the products, and at least it depends on the traveler if he wants to recycle the product. So anyhow, you may have the opportunity to recycle, but as we know in Germany, not everyone does it. So for us, it's really, really important to be an honest influencer for responsible consumption, for responsible shopping, but also for responsible travel. And this includes, travel essentials like as you can see here, the 24 bottles, for example, creating awareness around refill, around circularity, but also doing this across the whole duty-free assortment and not just limited to one area, one category or something. But the challenge is, of course, being substantial, but at the same time simple and functional. So finding out what are the real substantial sustainable attributes of cross-category products. And we started with this cross-category campaign because we wanted to highlight all those beautiful actions from our from our brand partners they are already doing. And as you can see here on the image, we've highlighted the kind of bestsellers, and we are really happy that we've learned from the brands that they are also into these kind of beautiful actions. But we don't want to limit it on the massive and perfect sustainable actions, because we are all real aware that travel retail is not as far as it could be, or as a domestic retail is, for example. And we have really, really diverse travelers. We have the diverse employees and diverse interests, of course, and diverse knowledge of sustainability. So this is why it's so important to make it also transparent what's behind those kind of products. Where did we get those attributes and those information from the brands? And here the collaboration comes in. We need the data and the information from from our brand partners, and we've learned a lot during this self-assessment questionnaire process about our brands, and we were really, really impressed, but also learned a lot about the challenges when it comes to packaging, for example, what is already possible, what is not possible. So of course we can always focus on topics and say you need to have a recycled material in your packaging, otherwise you won't be highlighted here. But when it's not possible, it doesn't make sense to force the partners and the brands. So this is exactly what we need with regards to collaboration, talking about the challenges, talking about the opportunities. When it comes to establishing environmental and social standards, but also, of course, when it comes to promotion materials. You can see here the promotion materials, and yeah, it was really challenging to get sustainable promotion materials or point of sale materials here. This is what we learned as well. That is not so easy because we are in the security area, and in the security area, you have to focus on some kind of requirements when it comes to fire restrictions or something. So this is everything we need to consider when we create these kind of lovely collaboration in terms of, yeah, better for you, better for the planet. Thank you for raising that, Nicola. It's great to hear that you realized about this campaign. And we've discussed the slogan a lot of times. If we can say, is it really great for you, and is it really, really better for the planet? Yes, it is. It is better. It is not great for the planet, but it's better for the planet than maybe other options. But of course, it's important to explain that to the customer, what's behind these kind of topics. And here we come to the multi-channel. Dogus, and you explained that you have the microsite where you explain your actions. So this is what we do as well. We have our website where we explain what's behind the attributes, what do we mean with future friendly, and what are our challenges, where we are already, where we are not yet. So this is really important to raise those kind of topics. And we received really good feedback from our travelers, but also received critics, of course, and critical words. And in that term, it's of course important to have the arguments ready. And here it helps that we have the self-assessment questionnaire where we've analyzed our brand partners and can say, okay, we've analyzed them. They have a really, really good score when it comes to sustainability performance. So this is why they are here on the future-friendly stage. But this is what we mean with transparency. When you're not transparent and can't explain why you have it on the stage, you will be challenged all the time from your customers, from retailers, from other retailers, or from airports as well, because greenwashing is on the rise, unfortunately, and we need to be really, really careful and really, really honest, and not limited to marketing expectations.
Thanks.
Yeah, so that's
Thank you very much, because we can see L'Occitane product on your picture.
Yeah, of course.
That's great too. I actually want to switch to Philippe from Svenja at the moment. Thank you so much, Svenja. I want to get your perspective as a fellow retailer, Philippe, from Dufry's perspective. Svenja mentioned the downcycling aspect there, the downstream, and obviously the challenges around that, and there are discrepancies on the supplier level. There's lots of different things that suppliers are doing in different areas of sustainability, but from a Dufry perspective, how do you monitor that? How do you tailor a retail strategy that accounts for those discrepancies? Obviously, you look after a number of categories, so that's why I'm curious to know, is there a gulf in the level of, particularly when it comes to recycling, awareness around the quality of the products that you're listing, and how do you address that from a supplier perspective?
So, I mean, what Svenja was saying about recycling is obviously something that we are all aware from, and it's true that it's quite difficult to manage from a retailer perspective. However, our role in the industry is maybe to support the initiatives that are taken by the different brand partners, and that's the key role for a company like Dufry, and this is how we did it also with Mondelez in that case. But we also talked a lot internally about the smartest move, and this is the kind of initiative that we need to support. We need to highlight in our stores. But it's true that we shouldn't be too restrictive in the way we are communicating on those initiatives, and that's the whole challenge for a retailer. I think defining some criteria, this is key, because indeed I think one of the biggest challenge is to make sure that people understand what you are telling them in a very short period of time, because we are all still in the travel retail environment. So people cannot spend hours, finding out what the different brands or what the different stakeholders are doing in that respect. So it has to be quite straightforward, quite easy to understand, but also meaningful. And this is what I think also in that case we fully align with Heinemann. It's not a matter of highlighting a marketing detail, but it's really to highlight what are the initiatives. And from our side, so this is a journey that started a few years ago, and started with all our brand partners. Again, we highlight today Mondelez partnership because it has been a great partnership, a very close collaboration, and we did it very nicely at the right moment. So, but the same approach is we keep the same approach with all our brand partners, and there are two let's say, if I may say, two sequences here. The first one is what we are doing with the current brand partners, and this is something where it's evolving. It's a long journey, and we will support and we keep supporting, trying to incentivize the same way that Heinemann is doing by promoting the different initiatives. We might have a slightly different way to do it, but still, I think the goal is the same. And then, as you said, whenever now we are talking about listing new brands for the categories at least that I'm managing, the sustainability is one of the main or one important, let's say, topic that we are discussing even before considering any listings. So that's why we keep this consistency between what we are doing in our stores and the way we are developing the category on a more long-term view.
Totally. I want to actually turn to Nuno and I'll ask the same question. Obviously, from an ARI perspective, updated ESG strategy last year, and how you're approaching the challenge of handling brands, existing brands and new to market brands, in terms of the way that you approach their sustainability credential, particularly when it comes to the recycling element, the recyclability of those products. So perhaps you could give us some information on that, Nuno, and indeed, I know that ARI also has some developments from a consumer facing perspective in terms of a new campaign. So I wanted to give you the opportunity.
So like you said, look, our ESG strategy is structured from an ARI point of view is structured around three key pillars: people, planet, and product. On the people side, we focus on everything that has to do with well-being, diversity, and inclusion. So talking about our employees, but also the communities where we work with, like CSR activities. Then on the planet side is more the green element that we talked about: emissions, reduction of consumptions, CO2 emissions, like I said, plastics, single-use plastics. And then on the product is how we work with suppliers to move in the right direction. And that obviously, like Philippe was saying, is sometimes a complicated discussion. Suppliers or vendors have their own views and their own journey and their own roadmap to get to where they want. And we try to incentivize them and work with them to first list and work with them to provide to the customer sustainable options, and also work with them more in kind of what's in the background, like how can we limit CO2 emissions in terms of optimizing deliveries to our warehouses. So a bit more on the logistical, on the back office, and probably less consumer facing than products. In products, we have internal objectives that we want to grow our range of what we call sustainable USP propositions, so products that have some sort of sustainable USP proposition, and we have that as one of our internal targets. And as you mentioned, we've recently launched this campaign that we have at the moment, the Little Changes, Big Differences, where, similar to what Svenja was saying and Philippe, we have in our stores areas specifically focusing on environmental and sustainable products, where we try to focus on and come up with a range around 4 more or less key benefits that we are providing to the customers. One is certified goodness, like what's better for you, forest friendly, greatness, and guarantee. Sustainability is the second one, so sustainable cocoa, recyclable packagings, locally sourced, that type of things. Then the third is dietary preferences, like organic, vegan friendly, meat free. And the fourth one is free form, what we call free form, like sugar free, alcohol free, dairy free. So and it's working with the suppliers to come up with a range in our shops that addresses these four different concerns, even or trends.
Because time is short, sorry, Luke.
We need to jump in, maybe some questions if there are any from the audience. Yeah. But
before that, I just wanted to put a question to actually Nuno, Svenja, and Philippe that was raised in a session earlier this week about the concession model. We're not going to talk about maximum margins unless it's relative to sustainability, we said. But it is an interesting question, because the obviously a lot of the suppliers of sustainable products are, the boutique distilleries, the craft distilleries, the boutique beauty companies, and the smaller confectionery companies who are making an effort to invest in sustainable packaging, sourcing, and so on. And there's obviously a higher cost of production in that. They obviously can't play on a level playing ground as the giants like Mondelez, Unilever, Nestlé, and so on. Is it in the thought process to be more lenient and adapt this concession model to smaller companies to enable travel retailers to bring in a greater offer of sustainable products? So Nuno, because you've got the mic, I'll put that to you first.
Well, I think that's more of a question for airports, and unfortunately we don't have airports here at the moment. But yes, there is evidence in the past even of retailers trying to bring in not necessarily sustainable, but other brands that are, like, I don't know, prevalent in the high street, and that we've wanted at ARI and other retailers wanted to bring to the airport and the travel retail world, and where the margins simply were not there to be able to bring them. And there was flexibility in the past from airports to kind of open exceptions in concession agreements to be able to source certain important brands at a lower concession fee or under a different model that would allow the retailers to showcase them. Again, we would love to have that discussion. We want to do that, but ultimately it's an airport's call. So it's an airport's decision. So we need to have the buy-in of who is managing the airport and then the grantor of the licenses.
Okay, I can anticipate Svenja and Philippe's reply, but I'll pass it on to you. Philippe, do you want to take that?
I was about to say that as a gentleman, I would rather leave Svenja answering this question. No, look, I mean, yes, obviously, Nuno, said it. We are not the one leading those discussions. So it's for sure. I mean, it's a discussion. It also should be discussed with our airport partners. I think there are still some ways to overcome, but it's a discussion that we need to have at certain stage. But we can only influence. That's as Nuno was saying.
Yeah, absolutely, totally agree with Nuno and Philippe, and Nicola also raised her hand. So just keep it short and simple. That it's really great to see that all those great brands do have their efforts, but the smaller ones as well. So we have highlighted here some smaller brands like the 24 bottles or something. So they are coming up, and we are trying to realize or not putting the real big stage to them, but these kind of smaller stages. And plus, it's not limited to the discussion with the airports to the concession model. It's also when it comes to energy management, for example, to waste management. How can we collaborate on these kind of topics closer with the airports? So this is why it's really great to have to open and to be aware about your influencer chain and checking. Where are the needs and where are the to-dos with regards to energy management, for example, and waste management. So Nicola, please.
Nicola, I think you're on mute.
I'm off mute now. Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
No, you've gone on mute again.
Okay. You think I'd have the hang of this now? I suppose my it was less to do with the concession model, and I just had it was around the communication piece, which has come up in quite a lot of the sessions, and how important it is to the consumer. And I suppose I just had come across something that I thought was really interesting, is that 70% of consumers, if you don't tell them what you're doing, it's in reference to your question, like they think you're not doing anything at all. So that's why we have to be much more on the front foot on it. And also sort of 85% of consumers want to be educated by what we do. So thinking about the model of how we can create that shared value and communicate, it's about more that I feel that we need to collaborate more on the omni-channel piece and talking to people before they come to the airport or into the store, because to your point, Philippe, it's very, they're very time pressured and trying to explain something when they're trying to navigate around probably a different store. So what could we do between the retailers, the brands and the airports to get to the consumer before they travel, maybe leveraging some of the airlines to talk about the initiatives that the airport and the retailer are doing together with the brand. And also I think it's about translating that into something meaningful. So taking, for example, the number of products that we have sold that are recyclable equates to X million air miles. So putting it in language that, the consumer understands, because they're worried, oh, am I being irresponsible traveling? Oh, well, this is how we're offsetting it. So it was just some ideas about how important it is to reap the benefits of these investments and time by, talking to the consumer about it. So that was my final point.
It's fantastic. I think Nuno's going to love you for that, because just as APTRA was working on the economic impact report of duty-free in the region, I think there's a great idea for a sustainability impact report there that APTRA can put its teeth into.
We didn't line that up in advance, seriously. We haven't spoken for years.
I just want to get, there's a couple of questions here for Jean-Charles. We haven't heard from you in a while, so just quickly, where's the first one? How can we incentivize, Jean-Charles, customers in store to buy more refillable products?
We developed, right now we develop, I think, I'm not the specialist, but we have 60 different stores. So it's a try, and we will have feedback from this initiative with bulk services. And but I think we are not the only brand to do that, and we are very happy to be part of the but also be happy to see that other brands are developing this initiative. And I'm sure for the rinse off product, etc., we will have a very good feedback from the consumer. So, but I think it's quite short right now to be sure to have the feedback here.
Okay, and going from the consumer to the customer, to the trade customer, what has been the response of retailers to your investments in biodiversity and fair trade? Is it something that's generated more interest and demand from your retailer partners? And does this interest vary from one region to another?
I'm not sure to understand your question. For the retailers, what is the impact of our...
The question is whether the response of the retail, when you're communicating, I'd imagine, your initiatives on biodiversity and fair trade to the retail partners and airports, I would imagine, is it something that has generated more interest and demand from retailers? And does that demand and interest vary from one region to another?
I'm not sure to have the answer because I'm not in the business directly. So, but I can ask to my colleagues and come back to you. But what I can see is that more and more partners are interested in sustainability. And you can see with the Svenja example on the initiative of Positive Future, we are part of this initiative. So you can see that it's an interest for retailers.
Okay, thanks. And one last question before I hand back to Luc. For you, Dogus and Philippe, the question says, consumers are obviously sensitive to different issues, whether on the ocean or tree planting. Will Mondelez and Dufry differentiate the projects it supports and communicates to consumers based on priorities by region or focus just on the one tree planted? So
definitely, I mean, it's quite a broad concept and not only limited with the one tree planted. And I think in terms of these sustainability initiatives, one of the most critical things is the credibility. So, and the traceability, which on this one, we are providing full access to the live status reporting, which I believe one of the most critical things.
Thanks, Dogus. I think we're out of time, so I'll hand back now to Luc to wrap up.
Thanks very much, Michael. And thank you for all your valid and really important contributions to this session. We've covered a lot of ground. There's still a lot to cover. Unfortunately, we only have 90 minutes, but we're very, very thankful. And indeed, to some of those breaking news elements as well, you know, from ARI and Nestlé. Thank you both for sharing those. So I'm just going to ask a final roundtable question based on what we've heard today, what we've learned during the session. I want to ask each of our panelists for some concrete action points, perhaps a sentence as we're short of time. What are some of the concrete actions or next steps that your businesses can take based on what you've heard in this session to develop the conversations in sustainability and to stay ahead of the consumer curve, as we've been alluding to? So perhaps I will throw that question first to Nuno to begin.
Yeah, thanks, Luke. Well, from an APTRA point of view, like I mentioned, it's the sustainability report and the work that we're doing on behalf of our members, and we are sharing this, and we will make this available to others as well. From an ARI point of view, the immediate actions in terms of what we're doing in the background, obviously, it's all around the metrics in terms of reduction of emissions and all of that, but also, like I mentioned, these campaigns that we've launched and that we are doing this now, hopefully more frequently, and like Nicola is saying, also shouting a little bit more about them, and so that's what we're doing from an ARI point of view.
Thanks very much, Nuno. Nicola, I'll come to you for your closing remarks.
I think it's around creating that shared value, and there's a lot of mutual objectives between retailers and suppliers, and how do we bring that to life in store and pre-store. But I think we really need to bring the airports into the conversation as well, because I think there's a real commonality there, even just in terms of space or communication. So it's collaborating to create shared value and drive everyone's sustainability agenda forward and communicate it to the consumer.
Critically important. Thank you very much, Nicola. Svenja, come to you.
Yeah, thank you. So as my introduction was creating a joint sustainable impact along the travel value chain. So wonderful, Nicola, you summarized that perfectly, that we have created the sustainability journey for the traveler at the beginning of their travels, and educate them at the beginning of the travels. And for that, we need, of course, data. We need joint data. We need joint approaches with regards to sustainability, so that the traveler understands that when he starts in Copenhagen, travels to Sydney or to Singapore, whatever, and finds not the same but similar messages, and does understand, okay, duty free and travel retail does really create a sustainable impact, and so that they are feeling happy and pleased, to be a responsible traveler in general.
Use of data, more accurate data in sourcing more responsible products is, of course, a really pertinent topic, one we didn't get time to discuss, but I'm sure in some of the other sessions coming up, we will get the chance to do so. So thank you very much, Svenja. If I can come to Jean-Charles.
Yes, we can see that with the different intervention that communication is key to link our customers and all the supply chain. And maybe when we speak about sustainability, communication, not as a competitive asset, but globally, so through coalitions, to speak that we are acting together, the different companies and brands, not to be more visible, but really to act and to show that, for example, cosmetic sectors or natural ingredients based company can improve their impact. And for example, the OP2B initiative, so One Planet Business for Biodiversity, is also a good opportunity to communicate through the whole supply chain.
It's a really good point, Jean-Charles, and something again we didn't touch upon, potential to forge cooperatives or alliances to represent different categories or brands or regions on raw materials and other aspects. So very well said, point well made. Dogus, come to you.
So, which is great to see that we have a lot of synergies first, and also a lot of common challenges, which also stresses the importance of the collaboration across all stakeholders, serving for the greater good of the people, planet, and the industry. When I believe is basically, I think what is equally important is making all those, beautiful initiatives visible and touching the hearts and the minds of the consumers across the entire consumer journey. I think we should hold hands tight and collaborate more on this one.
Thanks, Dogus. And Philippe.
Yes, look, it's difficult to add on top of what has been said. I mean, a lot of things have been already said. From our perspective, I think it's important to create the right retail environment in order to support all these initiatives, to communicate to the customer, and we have already, we take that as a holistic approach. We have many different initiatives at group level, but for sure, from my perspective, I want to and we already have some plans in order to expand the execution of the way we are promoting these initiatives, but also to multiply the initiatives with Mondelez, but with Nestlé, with all the brand partners, because as well, the key thing is that alone we will not be able to make a significant, let's say, impact on the industry. So it's really something that we need to grasp as a group, because we have, as Dogus was saying, I think we have common interest in building that, in that direction.
Thanks very much, Philippe. We are out of time. We're running over time, so I'm going to hand back to Michael very shortly. Just as a reminder, we've got 2 further sessions today. We have the second part of our keynote, and we have a Spirits in Sustainability session coming up very shortly. I'll let Michael talk more about that afterwards. Quick reminder, you can access a wealth of information and knowledge on the sustainability news and initiatives that TR Business are pursuing, and on behalf of the wider industry, via our website, trbusiness.com, we have a dedicated sustainability tab. Indeed, we've also launched our first sustainability e-zine, as Michael and my colleague Charlotte have alluded to in the past, so please do make use of that. Click through via the links in the mailers. There's plenty of content there to keep the conversations going. And that's pretty much it from me. I'm going to hand back to Michael now. And once again, on behalf of myself and TR Business, thank you all for this extremely rich dialogue. And we look forward to continuing the conversations. Thank you. Michael, over to you.
Thanks, Luke. Yeah, again, thanks to everybody. As Luke said, very rich discussion, and we look forward to taking the discussion further offline and seeing how we can collaborate between the various stakeholders taking part in all these sessions this week, further in the weeks and months ahead. Thanks also to our session sponsors, Mars, Beam Suntory, Diageo, JTI and L'Occitane en Provence for supporting this particular session. As we said right at the beginning, this session will be on demand here on the platform straight away afterwards, well, in a half an hour or so, and in the next day or two on our YouTube channel, as all the other sessions already are as well. So you can go and watch that again there, as many people did in last year's event. Literally thousands of people came and watched this this session, all these sessions on the YouTube channel afterwards. So as Luke said, we'll see you a bit later in about less than an hour for the spirits session. I've got a good line of speakers there from all different sectors of the spirits category. And again, the closing keynote at 2 p.m. But coming up very soon, we'll have Nuno will be presenting at the APTRA exchange at the TFWA event in Singapore, which Luke is moderating there early May. So we'll be there in Singapore, also not just in that session, but in the Sustainable Future session, where we've got a good lineup of speakers there and some insights from Mindset on sustainability in the Asia Pacific region. After that, we'll have 2 webinars coming up in June, on June the 1st and June the 15th, on health and wellbeing on the 15th and diversity inclusion on the 1st. So more information coming on that on TR Business soon. The Travel Retail Awards are underway. At the moment, entries close end of May, so do get in all your category awards nominations, and of course the nominations for the Best Sustainable Supply, Best Sustainable Retail, Airport Cruise or Airline Retail Award. So that will be voted on by thousands of traveling consumers in partnership with Mindset, and we'll be announcing the winners of the awards at the ceremony in Cannes on Tuesday the 4th of October during the TFWA event there. But of course before that, we'll all be convening in Cyprus for the 2nd edition of the Travel Retail Consumer Forum, where we'll be hopefully tasting some vegan Kitkat, courtesy of Nestlé, because they're sponsoring one of the coffee breaks, but and a host of other delights from Cyprus in partnership with Cyprus Duty Free, who are also host sponsor of that event. So that's the 5th to the 7th of September. We look forward to seeing you there also. Registrations will be open very, very soon. That's it from me. Thanks again, and see you in just less than an hour for the next session. Take care. Bye-bye.